Goals are comforting. That is their greatest flaw. The moment a goal is declared, pressure disappears. The mind registers intention as progress and relaxes. Nothing has changed in reality. Yet the individual feels relieved as if action has already been taken. This emotional relief is not discipline. It is self-deception. Goals exist in the future, safely distant from consequences. They demand nothing today. That is why weak people love them. A goal allows someone to feel ambitious without submitting to structure, to feel virtuous without enduring cost. It is hope without enforcement. Power has never been built on hope. The dangerous lie repeated endlessly is that people rise to their goals. They do not. No one rises under pressure. When conditions worsen, fatigue, stress, boredom, temptation, people collapse, and they collapse to the lowest level of structure already installed in their lives. Not their dreams, not their values, their systems. If there is no system, collapse is total. This is not a moral judgment, it is mechanical. Human behavior follows the path of least resistance. When energy drops, the body defaults to what is easiest, most familiar, least demanding. This is why motivation is useless when it matters most. Motivation disappears exactly when resistance appears. Those who rely on desire are governed by mood. Mood is unstable, therefore their lives are unstable. A goal says, I want this named end world. Name out. The system says this will happen. One is emotional, the other is coercive. Systems do not care how you feel. They do not ask permission, they do not negotiate. They execute. That is why systems outperform intention in every domain that compounds money, health, influence, competence. Most people mistake intensity for effectiveness. They believe that wanting something badly enough will produce results. This belief persists because it feels noble. But history does not reward nobility. It rewards structure. Wanting wealth is common. Being wealthy is rare. Wanting discipline is common. Being disciplined is rare. The difference is not hunger. It is architecture. To set a goal is easy. Anyone can do it. That is why it carries no power. To build a system is humiliating. It requires admitting that willpower is unreliable, that emotions cannot be trusted, that the self must be constrained to perform. Most people reject this not because it is false, but because it wounds their ego. They prefer to believe they are exceptional rather than accept they are predictable. Goals flatter identity. Systems ignore it. This is why goals fail under friction. They dissolve the moment. Execution becomes uncomfortable. Systems survive because they are designed for discomfort. They assume resistance in advance and neutralize it. If your life is not producing the results you claim to want, the explanation is simple and brutal. Your systems are perfectly designed to give you exactly what you have, not what you desire, what you tolerate. You do not lack ambition. You lack enforcement. Until behavior is structured, results will remain accidental. Until action is automated, progress will depend on mood. And anything that depends on mood is fragile. The disciplined are not stronger than others. They are simply less free to sabotage themselves. And that is where control begins. You collapse to your design, pressure reveals truth. Comfort conceals it. Under ideal conditions, anyone appears competent. When life is calm, schedules are light and energy is high. Even the undisciplined can perform. But power is never tested in comfort. It is tested when friction appears, fatigue, boredom, stress, temptation. And in those moments a predictable outcome occurs. You do not rise to your intentions. You collapse to your design. This collapse is not a failure of character. It is a failure of structure. Human behavior is governed by conservation of energy. When effort becomes costly, the body defaults to what requires the least resistance. This is why people revert to old habits under stress. Not because they want to fail, but because nothing stronger has been installed to override instinct. What you repeat in weakness defines you more accurately than what you promise in strength. Most people misdiagnose the problem. They believe they need more discipline, more grit, more motivation. In reality, they need fewer decisions. Every decision drains energy. Every choice introduces hesitation. By the end of the day, the mind is depleted, and depleted minds do not execute plans. They seek relief. Relief is the enemy of progress. Those without systems are forced to negotiate with themselves constantly. Should I work now or later? Eat this or that? Push harder or rest? Each negotiation weakens authority. Eventually, comfort wins by default. Systems eliminate negotiation. When action is predefined, there is nothing to debate. The behavior happens before emotion can intervene. This is not rigidity, it is efficiency. A system does not ask whether today feels right. It assumes today will not feel right and executes anyway. This is why vague plans fail. I will work out more. I will focus better. I will be consistent. These statements are meaningless under pressure. They provide no instruction when energy is low. Ambiguity creates loopholes and the human mind exploits them immediately. Precision closes escape routes. If an action is not scheduled, specified, and constrained, it will not survive resistance. If a behavior relies on memory or intention, it will be forgotten. If it relies on emotion, it will be abandoned. The evidence is visible in outcomes. People with similar intelligence, resources, and opportunity diverge dramatically over time. The difference is not talent, it is repeatability. Those who build repeatable processes advance steadily. Those who rely on bursts of effort stagnate. Consistency compounds. This is why systems scale and motivation does not. Motivation spikes and fades. Systems persist, they operate under bad moods, bad weeks, and bad circumstances. They are indifferent to personal drama. If your progress disappears the moment life becomes difficult, then progress was never secured. It was borrowed from temporary conditions. Real control is not the ability to perform at your best. It is the ability to perform at your worst. And that ability is never emotional. It is structural. You are not failing because you are weak. You are failing because your design allows failure. Change the design and collapse becomes impossible. Choice is the enemy of control. Choice is celebrated as freedom. In practice, it is friction. Every choice demands energy. Every decision opens a negotiation. And every negotiation is an opportunity for weakness to take control. The more options you allow yourself in the moment of execution, the more likely you are to choose comfort over outcome. Those who dominate results understand this early. Choice is a liability. A system exists to eliminate choice at the point of action. Not because choice is immoral, but because it is inefficient. The moment you ask yourself, should I do this now? Authority has already been lost. Comfort has entered the conversation, and comfort always argues convincingly. This is why disciplined individuals appear rigid to outsiders. Their lives seem repetitive, constrained, even boring. But what is mistaken for limitation is actually insulation. They have sealed off the paths that lead to self-sabotage. The undisciplined live reactively. They decide in real time. They adapt constantly. They call this flexibility. In reality, it is vulnerability. When every day requires fresh decisions, performance fluctuates. When performance fluctuates, progress stalls. Systems replace spontaneity with inevitability. The average person believes freedom comes from keeping options open. In truth, freedom comes from closing them deliberately. Each closed option reduces cognitive load. Each removed decision preserves energy over time. This creates a decisive advantage. This is why those with systems seem calm. They are not fighting themselves all day. Every repeated decision drains authority. What time to wake up, what to eat, when to work, whether to train today. These are not trivial questions. Multiplied daily, they exhaust willpower. Exhausted people do not build anything durable. The disciplined decide once, they decide in advance. When emotion is low and clarity is high, then they lock those decisions into structure. Fixed schedules, defined routines, non-negotiable sequences. Once locked in, the system runs regardless of internal state. This is not self-control. It is self-removal. When execution is automated, the self is no longer the bottleneck. Progress no longer depends on mood, confidence, or belief. It depends on design, and design does not get tired. This is where most people resist. They fear that removing choice will make life dull. What they do not see is that choice at the wrong level consumes attention meant for strategy. Systems free the mind by handling the trivial automatically. When the trivial is automated, the significant becomes visible. This is how power accumulates. Not through bursts of inspiration, but through reduction of noise, fewer decisions, fewer deviations, fewer opportunities to fail. Choice feels empowering in the short term. In the long term, it is exhausting. Control is built by narrowing, not expanding. Those who refuse to give up choice will always rely on effort. Those who eliminate choice replace effort with inevitability. And inevitability, once established, is almost impossible to stop. Remove emotion from execution. Emotion is volatile. That is why it cannot be trusted. Most people believe progress requires emotional alignment. They wait to feel motivated, confident, or inspired before acting. This belief ensures delay. Emotion is reactive by nature. It responds to conditions instead of controlling them. Any system that depends on emotional readiness will fail under pressure. Those who succeed do not defeat emotion. They make it irrelevant. A well-designed system assumes resistance in advance. It assumes fatigue, boredom, doubt, and distraction will appear. Instead of fighting these states, it designs execution so they do not matter. The action happens regardless of how the individual feels. This is the difference between discipline and design. Discipline demands constant effort. Design demands foresight. Discipline asks you to push through discomfort repeatedly. Design removes the need to push at all. Over time, the latter always wins. Emotion is a poor decision maker. It prioritizes immediate relief over long-term outcome. When allowed into the execution phase, it will sabotage progress every time. This is why relying on willpower is fragile. Willpower drains. Emotion intensifies. The imbalance grows until collapse occurs. Systems prevent this imbalance by removing negotiation. When an action is predetermined, emotion has no entry point. There is nothing to debate. The body moves before the mind objects. Resistance weakens once motion begins. Execution proceeds not because it feels right but because it is scheduled. This mechanical approach offends the ego. People want to believe they act from passion and choice. They resist the idea of becoming automatic. But automation is not dehumanizing. It is protective. It shields progress from internal volatility. Those who chase excitement confuse stimulation with movement. They seek novelty to feel engaged. But novelty fades quickly. What remains is repetition. Without structure, repetition becomes unbearable. With structure, repetition becomes momentum. Boredom is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of stability. To remove emotion, decisions must be made early when clarity is highest and emotion is weakest. This is when rules should be written, schedules fixed, and processes defined. Once defined, they must be respected without reinterpretation. Reinterpretation is how emotion sneaks back in. The common failure is flexibility. People believe systems must adapt constantly to mood. In reality, systems must resist mood. Flexibility at the execution level destroys reliability. Adaptation belongs at the design level, not during action. This distinction is critical. You adapt the system after reviewing results, not while performing the task. During execution, rigidity is strength. During review, curiosity is strength. Mixing the two creates chaos. Those who master this separation experience something rare, internal silence. The constant self-argument disappears. There is no longer a debate about whether to act. Action is assumed. Progress accelerates not because effort increases but because resistance disappears. Emotion will always exist. It will rise and fall without permission. But when systems govern behavior, emotion becomes background noise instead of a steering wheel. Control begins when feelings stop deciding. And once feelings are removed from execution, consistency becomes inevitable. Measure without mercy. A system that is not measured is already decaying. Most people build a structure once and assume it will hold forever. They treat the existence of a system as proof of effectiveness. This assumption is lazy. Nothing remains efficient without inspection. Entropy is constant. Without measurement, drift is inevitable. Measurement is not reassurance, it is exposure. Numbers do not care about effort. They do not respond to intention. They report outcome only. This is why people avoid them. Metrics remove the ability to lie to oneself. They replace narrative with fact. And fact is unforgiving. Those who want comfort track feelings. Those who want control track behavior. A system must be audited regularly and unemotionally. Did it run? Did it produce the intended outcome? Where did it fail? These questions are not moral. They are mechanical. A system that fails is not a reflection of personal inadequacy. It is a design flaw. The weak personalize failure. The strong analyze it. This distinction determines whether a system improves or collapses. When failure is taken personally, it triggers avoidance. When failure is taken structurally, it triggers refinement. Refinement must be precise. Not dramatic overhauls fueled by frustration, but small targeted adjustments. One step clarified, one friction point removed, one decision eliminated. Over time, these minor improvements compound into dominance. This is how systems become sharp. Most people abandon systems too early. Not because they fail, but because they become boring. There is no excitement in consistency, no validation, no sense of heroism, just repetition. The ego rebels against this silence and searches for novelty. Boredom is the final filter. Those who endure boredom inherit leverage. Those who escape it reset to zero. Measurement keeps boredom productive. It provides direction without emotion. Instead of asking, how do I feel about this? The question becomes, what needs adjustment? This shift removes drama from improvement. Progress becomes technical. At this stage, effort is no longer spent on execution, but on oversight. You stop doing the work and start monitoring whether the work is done correctly. This transition marks the move from labor to authority. Authority is quieter than effort. Those without systems remain trapped in output. They work harder to compensate for inconsistency. Those with systems reduce effort as reliability increases. Their advantage compounds invisibly. The ultimate purpose of measurement is not optimization, it is anti-fragility. A measured system does not merely survive stress, it benefits from it. Each failure reveals where reinforcement is needed. Each disruption exposes hidden weakness. Over time, the system grows stronger because it is used. Unmeasured systems grow brittle. They appear stable until they collapse suddenly. Measured systems adapt continuously. They never collapse dramatically because they never stop adjusting. This is the discipline most avoid because it offers no emotional reward. There is no praise for maintenance, no applause for oversight. But this quiet work separates those who drift from those who dominate. If you want freedom from chaos, measure relentlessly. If you want improvement, remove mercy from analysis. A system that is not questioned will eventually betray you. A system that is examined without emotion will eventually serve you. Freedom is designed, not felt. Most people chase freedom in the wrong direction. They believe freedom means fewer rules, fewer constraints, fewer commitments. They want flexibility, spontaneity, and the ability to decide in the moment. What they do not see is that this version of freedom creates constant friction. The mind is forced to manage everything all the time. Decision follows decision until energy collapses. What feels like freedom is often just unmanaged responsibility. True freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the absence of decision at the wrong level. When systems are in place, daily life becomes narrow and predictable. This offends those who equate freedom with novelty. But predictability is not confinement. It is protection. It shields energy from waste and preserves attention for what actually matters. Those without systems must think constantly, what should I do next? Am I doing enough? Should I change course? This internal noise consumes more energy than the work itself. Over time, it produces anxiety disguised as ambition. Systems silence this noise. When execution is automatic, the mind is released. You no longer negotiate with yourself. You no longer need reassurance. The system runs, and because it runs reliably, trust is rebuilt not emotionally but factually. Trust based on evidence is unshakable. This is the paradox most never understand. Discipline feels restrictive at the beginning and liberating at the end. Chaos feels liberating at the beginning and suffocating at the end. People choose based on short-term sensation and are confused by long-term consequence. The disciplined endure early resistance to eliminate permanent struggle. At this stage, effort changes character. You no longer push yourself through resistance. You allocate effort strategically. You spend it on design, refinement, and leverage, not on compliance. Compliance has been outsourced to the system. This is where dominance emerges. Those without systems must constantly prove their worth through effort. Those with systems do not need to prove anything. Output speaks. Consistency speaks. Results accumulate quietly. The more reliable the system, the less emotional involvement is required. This is not detachment, it is efficiency. Emotional investment is expensive. Systems reduce cost. This is why high performers often appear calm under pressure. Their behavior is not dependent on mood. Stress does not derail execution. Fatigue does not erase structure. The system absorbs volatility and continues. Fragility belongs to those whose progress depends on perfect conditions. Freedom at this level is not the ability to do anything at any time. It is the ability to do the right thing without thinking. When thought is no longer required for execution, thought can be reserved for strategy. This is the highest form of autonomy available to an individual. Life stops feeling reactive. You are no longer responding to circumstances as they arise. You are operating within a structure that anticipates them. Mistakes become manageable. Shocks become contained. Progress becomes inevitable. Most people never reach this stage because they fear commitment. They want exits. They want escape routes. But escape routes are how systems fail. Those who close exits gain control. Freedom is not found in endless options. It is found in irrevocable structure that removes the need for constant choice. Once this is understood, the pursuit of motivation ends. The pursuit of discipline ends. What remains is design, and design once complete governs quietly. Build what survives you. The final weakness of most systems is dependence on the individual. If progress collapses the moment attention fades, then nothing durable has been built. What exists is effort, not infrastructure. Effort requires presence. Infrastructure endures absence. And only what endures absence deserves to be called power. Those who confuse business with control never escape this trap. A system must be able to operate when you are tired, distracted, or disengaged. It must contain defaults, buffers, and fail-safes. It must assume error and continue anyway. Anything that requires constant vigilance is fragile by design. Fragile systems demand heroics. Durable systems assume mediocrity and plan around it. This is why most people sabotage themselves without realizing it. They design lives that require them to be exceptional every day. Perfect focus, perfect discipline, perfect emotional state. The moment reality intrudes, the system collapses and they blame themselves. The fault was never personal. It was architectural. A mature system reduces the need for supervision. Once installed, it runs quietly in the background. You intervene only when something breaks, and when it does, the break reveals where reinforcement is needed. This is not neglect. It is trust in structure. Those who micromanage reveal insecurity. They do not trust the system because the system does not deserve trust yet. Instead of improving design, they increase effort. This creates dependency and masks weakness. Dependency is the enemy of scale. Whether in life, business, or personal behavior, scale requires impersonality. The system must function independent of mood, identity, or charisma. It must be boring enough to survive repetition and strict enough to resist decay. This is why habits are insufficient. Habits are personal. They rely on memory and self-image. Systems are impersonal. They rely on triggers, sequences, and constraints. Habits disappear under stress. Systems persist. At this stage, your role changes. You stop being the executive and become the architect. The question is no longer, can I do this? But can this continue without me? This shift is uncomfortable. Architects receive no praise. There is no visible struggle, no emotional payoff, just predictable output. To those still grinding, this looks like detachment. They mistake calm for laziness. In reality, the effort has been moved upstream. Systems front-load discipline so that execution becomes cheap. This is why those who rely on them appear unbothered. They are not exerting will. They are allowing structure to operate. Over time, the system begins to feel natural. It integrates into environment, schedule, and identity. Breaking it feels irrational, not tempting. The cost of deviation becomes obvious. This is lock-in. Lock-in is the ultimate advantage. When deviation produces immediate loss, consistency enforces itself. The system no longer needs motivation, reminders, or guilt. It is self-protecting. Those who never build systems must constantly restart. Those who do build them never need to. The final goal is not productivity. It is continuity. Continuity is what allows results to compound. Continuity is what separates those who make progress from those who repeat beginnings. Build what survives you. Anything less is temporary. When the system becomes identity, at a certain point, discipline disappears. Not because effort increases, but because effort is no longer required. The system has moved beyond enforcement and entered integration. What once felt imposed now feels normal. What once required vigilance now operates by default. This is the phase most never reach. Early on, systems feel artificial. They resist habit. They collide with instinct. People mistake this resistance for incompatibility and abandon the structure. They do not understand that resistance is proof of displacement. The system is replacing something old. If it feels uncomfortable, it is working. Over time, repetition rewires default behavior. The system no longer feels like a set of rules. It feels like the environment. You do not consciously follow it. You move within it. And because the environment shapes behavior more reliably than intention, execution stabilizes. At this stage, identity adjusts automatically. People often believe identity drives behavior. In reality, behavior drives identity. When actions repeat consistently, the mind updates its self-image to match evidence. There is no need for affirmation. Proof accumulates quietly. This is why identity-based motivation is weak. It tries to convince the mind before evidence exists. Systems do the opposite. They generate evidence until belief becomes unavoidable. Once identity aligns with structure, regression feels unnatural. Breaking the system produces immediate friction, lost momentum, wasted time. Deviation is no longer indulgent. It is destructive. Consistency enforces itself. This is the most powerful psychological leverage available. Those without systems rely on guilt to correct behavior. Guilt is noisy and ineffective. Those with systems rely on consequence. Consequence is silent and absolute. At this level, self-control is irrelevant. You are not resisting temptation. Temptation has been removed from the environment. The system roots around weakness rather than confronting it. This is why mature systems appear effortless. Effort has not vanished, it has been relocated to design. The mind is no longer occupied with execution. It is free to observe, plan, and refine. This creates a second-order advantage. Clarity reveals leverage. Leverage amplifies output without increasing effort. Those still fighting themselves cannot access this layer. Their attention is consumed by compliance. They are too busy managing behavior to shape outcomes. When the system becomes identity, performance stabilizes. Peaks and crashes disappear. Life moves at a steady, deliberate pace. This steadiness is mistaken for stagnation by those addicted to emotional highs. In reality, it is the foundation of compounding. Systems that integrate into identity are difficult to dismantle, not because they are rigid, but because they make sense. They have proven themselves through results. Abandoning them would require denying evidence. This is why long-term control looks unremarkable. There is no drama, no reinvention, just continuation. By now, motivation has fully lost relevance. There is nothing to summon. Action occurs because the environment demands it. The system has replaced intention with inevitability. This is not personal development. It is environmental dominance. Most people attempt to change themselves. A few change the structure around them. The latter do not struggle with consistency because consistency is no longer a choice. It is simply who they are. The end of motivation, the beginning of command. Motivation is the last illusion people refuse to abandon. Even after structure proves its superiority, many still cling to the idea that motivation matters. They speak of finding it again as if progress depends on an emotional state rather than a mechanical process. This belief persists because motivation flatters the ego. It suggests that success comes from inner fire, not from submission to structure, but motivation is unstable by nature. It appears when novelty is present and disappears when repetition begins. Any system that depends on motivation is designed to fail precisely when it is most needed. Those who still rely on motivation have not finished building. A complete system does not care how you feel. It does not wait for inspiration. It does not slow down when enthusiasm fades. It executes because execution has been embedded. At this level, motivation is not suppressed. It is irrelevant. This is where separation becomes permanent. Most people live in cycles. They start strong, fueled by excitement. They push hard for a short period. Then resistance appears, energy drops, and behavior collapses. Ashamed, they pause, reset, and again. Each cycle weakens trust in themselves. Systems end cycles. A system does not surge and crash. It moves forward at a constant pace. This pace looks unimpressive at first, which is why it is underestimated, but consistency compounds. Over time, it outperforms every burst of motivation ever attempted. Intensity impresses briefly. Consistency dominates quietly. This is why disciplined lives often look boring from the outside. There is no visible struggle, no dramatic effort, no emotional narrative, just repetition. Observers mistake this for lack of ambition until the results become impossible to ignore. By the time others notice, the distance is already established. At the highest level, effort is no longer emotional, it is strategic. You do not push yourself. You allocate effort where it creates leverage, improving systems, removing friction, increasing reach. You do not waste energy on compliance. Compliance has already been solved. This is command. Those without systems must constantly prove themselves. They seek validation through effort and reassurance through emotion. Those with systems need no validation. Output is proof. Track record replaces belief. Confidence becomes procedural. Eventually, the language of self-improvement disappears. You no longer ask how to be disciplined, focused, or consistent. Those questions belong to people still fighting themselves. Your focus shifts entirely to structure, what to refine, what to remove, what to automate, what to scale. This is not self-help. It is control engineering. The final realization is simple and unforgiving. People are unreliable, but systems are not. Emotion fluctuates, identity shifts, circumstances change, structure endures. Those who accept this stop trying to change themselves. They change the environment, the process, the constraints. And by doing so, behavior follows without resistance. When motivation disappears, struggle disappears with it. What remains is execution without drama, progress without noise, and authority without effort. This is the end of illusion, not happiness, not inspiration, but command. And command, once established, does not need to be renewed. The quiet endgame. At the end of all discipline, all systems, all structure, there is something unexpected. Silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of order. The noise that once dominated life. The constant self-negotiation, the guilt, the second-guessing, the emotional turbulence no longer exists. There is nothing left to argue with. The system runs, reality responds. This is the endgame. Most never reach because it offers no spectacle. There is no dramatic breakthrough moment, no applause, no sense of arrival, only the steady confirmation that things work day after day, without persuasion, without force. This is what real power looks like. Those who live without systems remain trapped in reaction. They wake up responding to demands, impulses, and circumstances. Their days are shaped by whatever appears loudest or most urgent. They call this life. In truth, it is surrender. Those who live within systems experience the opposite. Their days are pre-arranged. Their energy is allocated before it is spent. Their attention is protected. They do not chase urgency. They impose order. Life stops happening to them and begins unfolding through their design. This is not control in the theatrical sense. It is control through inevitability. At this stage, the individual no longer identifies as disciplined, motivated, or ambitious. Those labels are unnecessary. What matters is that outcomes are predictable. Predictability enables planning. Planning enables leverage. Leverage reshapes environment. The system now operates above personality. Even when emotion fluctuates, execution continues. Even when circumstances change, structure adapts. Even when attention drifts, defaults hold. The system absorbs shock and restores equilibrium. This is why systems outlive goals, habits, and even identity. They are not beliefs, they are infrastructure. Most people never build infrastructure for their own lives. They improvise daily and wonder why nothing compounds. They mistake movement for progress and exhaustion for effort. Years pass, patterns repeat, results stagnate. Others choose differently. They accept constraint early. They endure boredom. They refine without emotion. They close exits. They measure relentlessly. They design for failure instead of hoping for strength. And eventually something decisive happens. The cost of chaos becomes obvious. Returning to disorder feels irresponsible. Structure is no longer a burden. It is protection. At this point, the system does not merely guide behavior. It defines reality. You do not need to believe in it. You live inside it. And because you live inside it, it shapes every outcome without demanding attention. This is not self-mastery. It is environmental mastery. The world rewards those who remove themselves as the weakest link. Those who design around human inconsistency rather than denying it. Those who build mechanisms instead of relying on moods. In the end, there is no motivation left to summon, no discipline left to prove, no struggle left to romanticize. There is only execution, quiet, predictable, relentless, and that is why it wins.